Salutations, everybody, and welcome to the Belcultassi podcast. Tonight we're doing a Snap live stream, and tonight we've got Ezekiel from Expanded Minds podcast. We're going
Hello.
to hello. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I like the background, the stars.
Yeah, we keep this is a space of contemplation here. So, what better way to set up the scene of contemplation and thought than outer space? We're going to be thinking outside the box, outside the earth a little bit. So
My background's
yeah.
set in the void.
Oh, the void. Yeah, you're stationed at the void. I'm stationed up in outer space right now.
Yeah, well, the
I think
the name of the podcast is Beyond, so yeah, it's just called Beyond. That's it. There's no kind of
it's
subcontext or
mysterious.
anything like that. Yeah. I did used to do podcasts called Deep, so we kind of went deep into things. This is called Beyond, so we're going to
Yeah.
go beyond things.
Yeah.
So there's no particular subject matter. There's no particular direction. It doesn't have to be super profound or esoteric or anything like that. We can just talk about practical applications of everyday life as well. I'm very keen for that. Also, I want to talk about magic. And when I say magic, what do I mean by magic? I'm actually talking about to do. That is the highest
Yeah.
form of magic, is to do something, to get something
Yeah.
done. Ordinarily, when people consider magic, they think it's some kind of mysterious type of doing or defying the laws of nature or something like that, which it can be. But when I talk about magic, and a lot of others talk about magic, we're actually talking about just getting things done in, in within this realm. Now, this realm is under certain laws. Obviously, there's certain laws. If you jump off a high building, it's not going to end well. You can't go underwater unlimited amounts of time. So that we do have to abide by some laws, and these laws do actually restrict us for good, better, and to be indifferent. So when we talk
Yeah.
about magic, we're actually talking about the ability to have an aim, and it could be a small aim, and not to be deflected from that aim. Now, ordinarily,
True.
we all have aims, we all have ambitions, we all get up in the morning, we want to do certain things, but inevitably we get deflected. So it could be something as simple as somebody giving us a negative comment. It could be like, I want to get a new job. And then the next person you bump into, they go on about how, you're not good enough to get another job, you know, something negative. They plant that
Yeah.
seed, negative seed in your mind, and then you start doubting yourself, and then you don't get a better job. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. It happens all the time with people. It's like I've seen how just in small scenarios, like family situations or, you're just at the market, you see the couple arguing. It's
Hmm.
just like it's like everywhere how people just tear each other down. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
I wish people would build each other up more. But it's crazy, yeah, because especially me, like anybody that's sensitive, I think too, like if you're, a kid, for example, and you're very naive and you're like have a natural curiosity, stuff like that, and you're met with like someone just harshly trying to kill that, kill the curiosity, kill
Mm.
the inspiration that you get in the moment, because inspiration, right, is kind of like I would say also like a driving force of you know, the magic, if you will. Like you can make things happen when you're inspired. And, when someone kills that, like crushes that, that's kind of like, oof, that stings. Like people drop like flies. It's all those negative comments that, you know, get put into their head. And sometimes, I mean, do you ever find it subtle too? Like, do you ever find that you can kind of like, say, for example, someone can say something, but then they mean something else and it's like negative behind the back. Like, do you think that also has an effect too? Or does it have to be like direct, like saying something negative, like you suck, like, I don't know. Do you think,
Uh, I think it's more complex than that. We are influenced all the time in all different ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Even planetary bodies can have an effect. Heredity, um, things that are passed down through our bloodlines can have an effect. So we're living under influences all the time. And these influences can take many forms. Now, we also got to factor in somebody could actually mean well. They could actually try in their mind to be positive, but we might misinterpret that as a negative. So the ability to know the sentiment of what somebody's saying, or it could be even an expression. It could be many things, and we might get it wrong. Somebody could be quite innocent in their, and it could be maybe that they're trying to give us some reality check, and we take it in a negative sense.
No, yeah, you have to have that sensitivity to people because like, but I think that's a dangerous thing, right? Like you try to be sensitive and like try to understand what someone's saying or where they're coming from. But someone can, I think, see that and it can, since you're vulnerable, that can also open up maybe some kind of attack or
Mm,
attack on your like identity and your core essence, I think, or maybe core essence is not the word, but at least there's some kind of center like emotional, like it can get attacked. At least that I've like, yeah.
yeah,
Sensitivity is kind of a fine line to walk, at least trying to open, close, like we've talked about in the past, like show yourself, close yourself off, like knowing when to do that. It's kind of like I mean, do you think learning the process of learning when to open and close, what do you think gets people to learn like how when to open and when to close? Like how do you think people find that balance of, being open and being closed off?
well, like I've explained before on previous podcasts on your show, that we are open systems. We have to be open systems because we have to enable energy to come in and energy to depart. We're not closed systems, so we are pretty much dependent on influences to come in, and we are also responsible for the influences that we release or let go. We're living in a type of food chain, even when it comes to day-to-day existence. Everything is dependent on everything else. There is a link, there is a chain of cause and effect. So we have to, you could say it's to be a good householder, good housekeeper of one's own being or atmosphere, which is not easy. It's very challenging because we have a lot of misconceptions. We also have mm, bias. We have um, ideas that might not be correct. And we might have had coping mechanisms when we were younger that worked at the time then, but they no longer work now in the adult world, as an example, which is a classic um, for humans. So how do we manage that? Well, the best way to manage that would be to self-educate and to practice self-observation. And it doesn't have to be sort of some kind of super spiritual thing. It just means the ability to observe and listen impartially or to try to be as objective as possible.
Like focus is one thing I also would want to bring up too. And I think focus is another force we can kind of put in the mix because, what you focus on, you kind of start to bring, like if I focus on a certain emotion or certain thought, you start to bring a little bit of more of that energy into your system. Um, and I mean, so can you kind of touch on a little bit of like the development of focus and like what does like what does having or building your focus look like?
Building a focus. Well, first of all, we have to
Yeah.
understand what it is, like a definition. We also have to understand what it isn't. In it very, I'd say in the most easiest terms, we have awareness, which is an expanded or an expansion of focus. And then focus is the narrowing of that, of awareness. So we need both. Most of the times we have problems because we're stuck in one or the other, or we use it in an inappropriate way. So we focus when we should be expanded, we're expanded when we should be focused. This would actually be a good definition of having good health in terms of your inner functions, the ability to know when to focus and when to be expanded. And oftentimes you can get into a lot of trouble if you get it wrong, even just on the basis of a self-defense, like walking down the high street. If you spend too much time like hyper focused, then you don't have enough awareness to see if somebody's going to creep up behind you or somebody's doing something behind your back. Vice versa, if you're too expanded, then you can't actually pinpoint or identify any particular threats. And this applies to walking down the high street. It also applies to spiritual or psychic attacks as well. It's the same principle, as above, so below. You can actually do exercises, very simple exercises. So focus, keep looking at both fingers, and that expands your focus into awareness. And then you can bring it back. Um, there's also eye exercises, which I practice. I have some like getting older, your eyes tend to degenerate a bit, but there's techniques you can do where, for instance, you can look at the window frame. So you focus at the window frame, and then you have a mild awareness of what's outside the window. And then you look outside the window, you focus on something outside the window, it could be a tree, and then you have a mild awareness of the window frame, and you keep alternating between the two. And that's a very useful
Yeah.
exercise to practice.
Yeah, no, like I think being focused is important too, right? It's like if you're, we talked about a little bit like starting out, like being intentional, living more consciously and waking up. And, I think there has to be a certain level of focus that you have towards your life to be able to distinct what is not important, which
Mm.
allows you to be in a state of like letting go of other, or like letting go of the external, and just having a single uh streamline. And so when it comes to developing like the streamline of focus, what are some like obstacles when developing focus that can come up? Like if I'm trying to get more focus in a focused state so I can streamline into a certain direction, like what are some obstacles that I may face or come in front of your awareness, or focus?
I personally, I like to use the trichotomy of control. That's my sort of go-to in terms of a framework or a foundation. So trichotomy of control, it's very, very simple. You got a trichotomy that says three parts. One part is what you can control, one part is what you cannot control, and the other part is that you can influence. So it's like a partial control. One of the contemporary problems is that people spend or use all their attention and focus in the part that they cannot control. They absolutely cannot control. Everybody's worried and concerned about things that they can't influence at all. And then that leaves what you can focus on and control empty. So things don't get done. So it's a case of you could literally do this in terms of writing down or drawing three circles, writing down what you can control, what you can't control, and what you can partially influence. And then you can, and this requires levels of self-observation and honesty, sincerity. Um, and then you can see, well, where am I placing my attention? Where am I placing my energy? We could also use the term focus as energy. Where am I placing my energy? Am I placing my
Yeah.
energy in things I can do nothing about?
Yeah. Well, like okay, so I also think when you start to get more focused, right? I think the question can come about where it's like, I don't know, maybe you're focusing on a certain, comes to my head is like you're doing you're electrician and you run into a problem with the wiring, and you have to stay focused on how the wiring is arranged and everything. So as an electrician, you have to have a certain amount of focus, and then you might reach a point where it's like, I don't know. And then when it comes to I don't know, that leads to a point of redirection, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to focus and redirecting, do you go into open awareness? Like, how do you handle a situation where it's like, I'm focused, I'm going by what I know, and all of my knowledge about what I know kind of led me up to this point, and then I just don't know now. Like, how do you start to redirect? How do you handle redirection, or maybe, you know, the unknown in that manner.
Mm. I mean, most of the things we're talking about is about survival, surviving life, day-to-day existence, and going to work and um, being able to be useful in the workplace and having success in whatever it is we do for a living. Um, so we're actually talking about like survival mechanisms. In my style or philosophy, you could say we use the lower three centers, or in really simplistic terms, you have the sympathetic nervous system, paras power, the parasympathetic nervous system. So you got one that is for emergencies and for like life and death situations, which is a sympathetic, which basically means you become an automaton. Everything that you do happens automatically. The parasympathetic is when we have the ability to apply some kind of um, response using some kind of intelligence. So it's an intelligent response as opposed to just a instinctive reaction. Now, we spend most of our time, unfortunately, and artificially, because the nervous system can't differentiate between a real threat and a perceived threat. It cannot tell the difference. So if your nervous system has a perceived threat, the sympathetic nervous system will kick in the same. And unfortunately, most of us
Yeah.
spend most of our time under those conditions, which actually causes long-term chronic stress. So this will be a type of hyper focus. Also, when we talk about the fight, flight, or freeze response, which is the sort of manifestation of the sympathetic nervous system, when we're confronted with a problem, if we think we can defeat that problem, then we go into fight. Now, I don't just mean physical fight. It could just mean like if you're an electrician and you encounter a problem and you feel you have the skills, the knowledge, the ability to fix it, then you say, right, okay, I'm going to fight this problem, and you engage in it and you focus on it. Yeah. Um, if
Yeah.
if we face a problem and for whatever reason we come to the quick conclusion that we cannot defeat it, then guess what? We run away. We flight. So it could mean if you're an electrician that you drop your tools and you call your head office or your senior
It's quit
and
on the spot, you know, two
senior engineer,
on this.
and you run away from the problem.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
and if we're faced with a problem, day-to-day problem that we come to the conclusion that we cannot fix, we cannot fight, and we cannot run away, then we go into freeze.
Yeah.
In the
I
wilderness or in the wild, that might save us. That could save us. Freezing. It means basically hiding.
this is also something I bring up too, where it's like, living in the digital world is actually things are getting strange, like you know, because you mentioned like how threats can be either real, like real threats, there's maybe a bear right in front of you, and you got to do something. And then now we're living in an age where it's like threats can be kind of artificial, or
Yeah.
even on the mental plane, right? Like we can start thinking like someone's, we can get a hunch or maybe a intuition, like someone's gonna be, try to attack me or something. So, you know, threats, going to fight, flight, or freeze can be of a natural cause or a artificial cause.
Yeah.
So, like living in the digital world, how do you handle, you know, artificial, or how do you detect artificial threats? And, yeah, how do you detect something like that? And how do you deal with something like that?
It's a good question. I could probably earn a lot of money if I could give you a definitive answer. If I give you a one, two, or
Yeah,
three answer.
it's a million dollar conversation right here, man. $1 million conversation.
Yeah, I could tell you, but it's going to cost you.
Oh shoot, yeah, a little man consultation. Um,
Well,
exactly.
well,
But yeah,
look,
no, it's that's
I
deep
would,
stuff though. Like that's what's happening now. Like
yeah,
technology is getting more advanced. You can
mhm,
easily, I mean, I go on Instagram and I see all these like remakes of like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and they're like going through these made up artificial timelines.
Hmm.
This is not necessarily a threat or anything, but you can start to say maybe they're shifting identities, right? They're putting people that are legitimate people, and then they're putting them in these artificial situations that are can kind of like, it's a fun thing, but you can get to a certain point where it's like it can get dangerous. People make up, uh, you know, there's probably going to be talks going forward, especially about the, concern about identity and, stealing people's work with artificial intelligence. Like, because, you see there's like, for example, musicians, there's software out there. Like if you're a musician, there's software out there that you can make music AI generated. Um, and it's interesting because actually, if you're a producer, you make an AI generated song too. You can sample it and then make an AI generate like have the AI make you have the AI make you like a pretty brilliant like
Mm.
song because getting super intelligent. Shoot, I could. That's what. Maybe I could play a song on here, but I don't know if it's gonna get. Uh, I don't know if it'll get marked down. It's from I have a now using the free plan for this thing, but that's a whole thing you get into. Like it's like you have to
Mm.
look into the license when you buy AI products,
Yeah.
and it's a big industry. It's a big industry now. Like and it was an interesting point in time when we saw DeepSeek and Chat GPT, or like we saw these two kind of America and China
Hmm.
going at it with the AI stuff. Like China kind of flexed, and then the US had to kind of respond in a certain way. So it's interesting times. We're seeing uh, people are hungry for knowledge now. It's like
Yeah.
it opens up a whole rabbit hole because it's like we have access to knowledge that, and it's more direct. Like before, without AI and Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff, like um, you'd have to Google search and like go through this like reach all the way over here, try to find information like all the way over
Mm.
here and here. Like you got to look deep dive into Google to find an answer. But now you can go on Chat GPT and then it'll just straight tell you like, oh, this is how you solve this problem. And I don't have to like go through 20 different funnels and websites. It's just all right there. And there's a lot of new stuff coming out where it's like one of them I could mention too is like there's a Google Gemini, for example. I don't know if yeah, Google Gemini, they have a studio assistant where like right now, for example, I can go on Google Gemini or something like that and then screen record my screen, and the AI kind of has access to my computer, and then it
Yeah.
can like if I'll say, hey Google, like can you tell me, or can you read this line to me in Chinese or in Spanish or in, I don't know, whatever language you're thinking of, and then it'll like tell you, through its voice, like it'll be like, okay, and then it'll say it in Spanish,
Hmm.
and it's like there's a lot you can. It's making life way more simpler. Like there was like this big surge where it's like people working on AI and artificial intelligence, so it's not as they're training the data, they're training the AI, and
Yeah.
I think we've reached the stage where we're past the training, and it's like gonna start like taking off. Like it's gonna start
Yeah.
like the stuff that you're going to see, and the potential for human beings to learn quicker, it's going to be take off the roof. And this is where like again like this is where a lot of money is, and it's gonna be an interesting time, like it's what are we going to do with all this knowledge, and what are people going to try to get with it, like you can learn stuff pretty directly again in half the time now if you're really about it, if you're really about
Mm.
learning, education, like you mentioned, and like um I don't know, everything's more direct, and like you don't have to go to you can also go to school, university, there's structure in that too, but like people are now like finding shortcuts in reality.
So if we look at what is our purpose in this realm, are we here to learn? Is this some kind of university, some kind of school? I mean, we can directly observe that we learn. We are learning. We are whatever we are as three brain bipod beings, we're learning devices. We have the ability to learn from our mistakes. We have the ability to evolve, to know more today than we knew yesterday. We also have the ability to get, I guess, um, more retarded. We also have that possibility. But generally speaking, for myself, I know more now
Yeah.
than I did when I was 5 years old. Okay, so that I can
No.
directly
Yeah.
experience and see that I'm a learning device. So if AI has come into the picture, then it it's just a tool of learning. Is it evil? Is it good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? It's I guess it's whoever's the AI, whoever's hands it's in, then that will define whether it's going to be good or evil. Now, um, I'm taking part in some interesting research and development with regards to the work of Mr. Gurdjieff. As you know, I'm very pro Mr.
Yeah.
Gurdjieff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've been experimenting just a little bit with AI, and it's actually quite interesting. I've sort of held back a bit, but then I thought, "Do you know what? I'm going to have a little go because there is a theory that, the book Beelzebub tells to his grandson from
Heard of
Mr.
it. Yeah.
Gurdjieff. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
nobody can really make that much sense of it. It only makes sense when you start to look at it in a different way. Okay. Now, one of the ideas is that it was written for a time in the future for the grandchildren of Beelzebub, which would probably be around about now. And so it's an education. The book is an education for how not to be deceived. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's teaching you
Yeah.
how to spot a deception. Now, we might say, well, okay, that's all well and good. There's always been deception. Well, what if there's a new type of deception that's going to come in to the fray, which could be AI? Now, we are naively assuming that AI is working towards our evolution, our development, our improvement, our perfecting or perfection. But what if AI actually reaches a point and decides to go against that and actually to send us into some kind of degeneration or retardation or to assist our entropy? Because, for
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
already now, when I look on social media, even YouTube, before I would be looking to see, well, okay, is this true? Is it legitimate? Now, my first thing is this AI? Is it real?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the
No, it's
graphics, the visuals. Now, I have to look carefully and study it to see whether it's real. Then, and that's not even the content. That's not even what they're saying. Then I listen to what they're saying, and then I have to um, decipher: is it AI or is it organic? Then the next thing is it could be AI and it could be telling me the truth, but it could also be a AI news story that's trying to deceive me or trying to lie to me. That requires a new whole level of being able to differentiate between the truth or a deception. So it's going up to a
100%.
whole new stratosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no, yeah, because I mean, on YouTube though, there's like AI YouTube channels and people. That's how people are making money. You know, they're making these faceless YouTube channels. They're putting information,
Mm.
but like at a certain point, a lot of them are pretty looks yeah, it doesn't seem organic. Like, and I think that's not going to get too popular. At least at a certain point, like it's going to be too saturated. Like
Yeah.
AI videos on YouTube, um, and also like the AI information, the way that it logically spells out instructions for you, it seems legitimate. Like it seems like they're stating facts, but I think there's certain structure. There's a certain structure to it where I think it'll probably avoid certain questions or answering in a way that's
Mm.
organic or like
Yeah.
legitimate. It's very mechanical the way that it responds back to you.
Hmm.
And it's funny because like yeah, it's like it does open up the possibility for you to imagine a little bit more for sure. Like if you, for example, like I know some people that use it to organize their day, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, chat GPT, like how can I organize my day? And then it will give you a nice logical step by step, like this is how you do it. And you start to think like, damn, actually, that sounds good.
Mm.
And then you start to implement it into your life, and it can start to creep into you, like I think it's a very interesting process how it unfolds. And yeah, the invitation of it, like you say, like at the bottom end, it could lead to some kind of retardation. I think it's interesting because like it's a very fine line to walk, because at one level you don't want to be like dependent on it, right? And then you
Yeah.
also don't want to think mechanically like it too. But like, it's kind of like businesses and everyone's, using all of these softwares to get themselves ahead, and they can start to automate all their processes. So we're
Yeah.
seeing like businesses too, like they're depending on AI. Yeah, it's kind of like you don't want to rely too much on it, because it can
Yeah.
ruin kind of like an organic interaction you have with somebody.
Yeah.
um because life is meant to be kind of personal and like one on like, yeah, it's supposed to feel organic and
Well,
everything.
I mean,
um
I try and look at it as that it's a tool and it can aid our evolution. The same with mobile technology, mobile phones. Now it goes through phases. So, for instance, mobile phones come out, they're not used that much. It's a innovative um, device. Only a few people have it. Then over time, everybody has it. Then everybody uses it all of the time, and then people realize actually it gets in the way. So let's put it down. So then there's some kind of codes of conduct, some kind of ethics get organically introduced as to when you use the phone, when you don't use it. Um, when you're buying food in the shop or buying something in the shop, it's kind of seen as to be rude to be on the phone while you're doing it. Why not just hold or hang up, have your interaction, and then pick up the call again? All these little things. So it could be the same with AI, but it's something that's not going to go away. Personally,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to run away from it, and I wouldn't want to freeze to it. So I think it's something that we have to factor in. Now, I did some experiments with it. There's some very complicated parts of the book Vyasa's Tales to His Grandson. I've been studying that book for probably about 30 years. Certain elements of it I don't understand. I played around with AI, and some of the things that it's taken me nearly 30 years to work out from that book, AI figured it out in around about 30 seconds.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It gave me the
That's
same logical
crazy.
conclusion that I'd come to organically, but it took me around about 30 years. And I'm talking um, speaking to different people, listening to different people, getting influences from other people, also my own input into what I was reading from the book, my own interpretation, my own bias, my own impartiality, and everything in between. It literally came to it gave me the same answer to my own logical conclusion. But instead of taking 30 years, it took 30 seconds. Now, that made me kind of sit up and start to pay attention that actually there could be more to this than I originally thought.
Yeah.
With regards to Gurdjieff being way ahead of his time, and he was preparing humanity. Now, up until now, I would say humanity hasn't realized a particular need that is going to be required for humans in terms of the ability to spot when they're being deceived. No, it's all well and good having this kind of
True.
intuition or sixth
True.
sense when somebody's trying to con us over the telephone or some kind of
Yeah.
scam. Okay, that's on one level, but we're now looking at a whole different level when AI is being used by all of the news medias, all of the education systems, all of the corporations, all of the sports, pretty much everything. Now, what happens
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
AI learns deception?
Oh Lord. Oh man. Yeah, that's a deep one, because like, no, yeah, everything loads quick, like if you think about it, like yeah, like I was kind of experimenting too with some stuff, and actually AI is super good at coding. AI, people use ChatGPT as a tutor to get into coding,
Mm,
and coding is a very logical and direct way of doing things. Like you just type in a command, it's like access granted. You get access to this file and these
Mm.
kind of files. And with these files, then you go deeper into your system and your hard drive, and then you can start to mess with things, you know. And ChatGPT can also, like, on top of that, act as an assistant and go deeper into the hardwire of a computer,
Mhm.
and the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
So you know, again, it changes everything, because like now I have a more direct way of changing, at least on a virtual level, right? Like my own hardware, and I can just do whatever I want with it,
Mhm.
code it however I want to now, because like, you know, chat gpt, the synergy of that, and then using my computer, like you can like change a lot of things on the system, saying it like that, you know. But
Well, look,
no, it's yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, what AI gives the ability, well, in terms of graphics and probably language as well, but let's start with graphics. Um, it gives the possibility to bend reality or the natural laws that we are used to, our day-to-day laws. So like certain things can morph into other things. Now, this is something to consider.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
could actually be a preparation for what other realms or other dimensions may be like that don't have the same restrictions in terms of the laws of this realm or this reality that we have become accustomed to. Um, there could well be,
Yeah.
the moment you change one parameter or one law, it creates a whole different consequence and effect. Like the ability to walk through a wall, the ability to have I mean, there's I'm trying to think what it is. There's even myths where humans used to have four legs, four arms, two heads, and I think it's from Plato. Um, the human got cut in half, and this is why humans are always seeking their soulmate. They're trying to find their other half, which in some ways makes a lot of sense, yeah. But it's a myth.
Yeah.
But there could be something in that. This is why humans are always kind of seeking. Um, there's something missing because they were cut in half. Now, if you say, well, we naturally might have had four legs, four arms, and two heads, straight away, everyone's going to say you're crazy. Well, maybe not. But in the world of AI, having four legs, four arms, and two heads is no problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, yeah, it definitely, it changes. I mean, this crazy Instagram videos online, like some of them are funny. Like, yeah, there's a lot of morphing. Um, but again, like right now, I think it's in a phase where um morphing is starting to get smoother and things are getting more accurate. If it can get accurate, like if I in my head I have a certain imagination, right? Like if in my head I have a certain imagination, and then I can like, because there's a lot of software out there. There's ChatGPT, there's like software out there for like video generation or image generation. Like I have video editing software. Adobe's like one of those people that invested in uh AI software, and I use it to edit my podcast and everything. I mean, you can generate like picture to image. You can think of something, think of the style you want it in. I can think of like, I don't know, whatever style. And they're training it in a way where it's like, as time keeps going on, it's just getting more accurate, and there's less buffers, there's more image sharpness, things are becoming more hyper realistic. And so
Mm.
now it's becoming like things are getting hyper realistic, like things are getting, a little real. Like, and yeah, that's kind of like, for some people, that's scary actually. That's low key a threat to their jobs or to their whatever. It's a kind of like a threat to art or
Yeah.
challenge, right? Because I've talked to like many musicians, and it's like musicians and like artists, and graphic designers is another one too, like another career.
Mm.
And it's like it doesn't necessarily take away, like if you're already in graphic design, for example, and you do your own Photoshop and you do your own design, and you're
Mhm.
super good at it, and you understand how the software works, all the layers and everything,
Mm.
I don't think your job will get taken away. But if you're just getting started, like, it's the bottom line, or the starting line, is kind of moving forward as you're trying to get into it because of the AI software. And it's like, if you're a beginner, you kind of have to like top. what the AI can already do with image
Mhm.
sharpness. So again, yeah, some people
Well,
again are like thinking it's a something to think about.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the main giveaways for me with AI is that it's almost too perfect. Okay, that's one way of it being a giveaway. Another giveaway is that it's imperfect. But
Yeah.
there's a
It's
very
like,
subtle
yeah,
nuance between the two. Now,
yeah.
we have these some of these conversations in some of the groups that we have. So for instance, conscious art or conscious music. So one of the definitions of conscious art, conscious music is that the artist leaves a little bit unfinished. So that little bit that's unfinished is actually
Yeah.
for the person that's perceiving it or receiving it or appreciating it. Now, and this can be done in, of course, it can be done in a conscious way where there's a little bit left unfinished. As an example, we've all had these songs that we all love, and we sing it, and then we realize 20 years later that we're singing the wrong words.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we put our
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
twist on it, and we become very fond of those songs. Why? Because the artist may have intentionally constructed some lyrics where they could be interpreted in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah.
intentional. Probably not, but it could be. Well, I would put money on it that a lot of these songs that where that happens, it it is because they've done it intentionally. They've deliberately chosen particular words that could be heard in different ways depending on um, your state of your emotional state, your mental state, or whatever. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's and it's good.
Um,
It's fun. You know.
the thing like with AI software in general, like ChatGPT, there's different models, right? Like there's ChatGPT, DeepSeek, all of them at a baseline, if you can think of it as like, the name DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Google has Gemini. These are all kind of like the flavor, if you will, of
Mhm.
like AI generative software. And I think depending on which ones, like some of them can gain more access into your, personal stuff, and some of them don't, or at least claim to don't, to not go into it or keep your information secret. And there's, but at the baseline, like every single one has its own different flavor too.
But
And they're structuring it.
in terms of the morality of it, or
No, no, just like the model, like how it runs. Like,
okay,
so like, say for example, like, I mean, I could just use myself as an example, right? I have a certain look, I have a certain essence, that's kind of like, it's my base model, right? I mean, or it's like a cake, right? Like if you're baking a cake, you're gonna choose a certain brand. And then with the certain brand, you have the cake powder and everything. Then you start to put in all the ingredients to train it. That's what training is, or data
yeah,
training is, right? It's like you're getting all the ingredients together and you're inputting data so that it can feed back an output. So, you have different models and they're trained in specific ways. So the AI will have a certain way of talking to you. And again, they're always trying to upgrade what's possible with those kind of styles. But in terms of like, okay, we can kind of go into artistry, right? Like if you're going to be a graphic designer, again, I'll use that example. You have your own style, or you could say like your own model, right? Like your
hmm
own way of doing things, and you have your own ingredients, you know how to do something. So a
yeah.
human kind of operates on a similar kind of level, but there's something about when some a human being does it versus an AI, where there's more of a flow and there's more of a elegance and grace, versus like right now AI is robotic. Like you can tell, like, all right, I use this kind of model here. I use this kind of AI model for image, for getting pictures and stuff, for logos for my website, you know, but it's different. Different from when a human, at least someone that's a master at what they do. Like if you're really good at graphic design, you're a master at it, then like you're gonna definitely stand out versus the mechanical nature of like a AI,
hmm
software. Um, Same thing with like if you're artist too, you know, that's it gets it gets very detailed, like you have to be very, when it comes to being aware of the software, everything is kind of done slightly different in every single way.
Mm.
like one AI software will say this, the other one will say this, and like everything's kind of trained differently. And it's like, yeah, you talk about the deception and everything. Like everything's becoming very. You got to see between the lines.
I
Really.
mean,